Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
G'day, how you going? Phil Tyrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show. Got a regular guest in the studio. I let him in every now and then, probably too often. When I get desperate and I need someone for a last-minute episode, he's just up the road here in North Sydney, so he gets a phone call from me, Lachlan Vidler from Atlas. How you going, mate?
Oh, mate, happy to be the ring-in.
You feel appreciated?
Yeah, I was going to say, bloody hell. I'm seeing, you haven't had these in before. We got your YouTube things up here.
Yeah, do you like that?
Well, you know what? I like it, but now I just understand why I'm a small cog in your big wheel, and that's why I get the late call-ups.
It is. It's nice to be handy. But keeping accessible for a lot of people, if you're dealing with the media, can be one of the greatest advantages.
Yeah, well, that is true, isn't it?
It absolutely is. But you're an important man around town. You're the chairman of PIPA, Property Investment Professionals Australia.
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I hear also, soon-to-be media celebrity, television celebrity.
Yep. So you're just joining in with all the other boys in the office, taking a piss and all the rest.
What do they reckon? So there's a couple of real estate shows on TV, but there's a new one, I think, coming out in about a month or so's time that you're a leading light of, I'm told.
Yeah. Well, season two, it's, so I did season one last year, but Budget Battle is on Channel 9. Hopefully it'll be out in the next few months.
Yeah.
And should be seeing, prime time on 9.
Prime time or not, like on a Sunday arvo?
I think in the week. Prime time in the week. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Budget battlers.
So so I'm on as their investment expert for the season, which is fantastic. God. And there's been a lot of awesome renovations that have happened with advice coming from me and a lot of value gain and all the rest around the place. So yeah, and just a very cool premise behind the show, of helping out sort of the Aussie battler and all the rest. So it's
there's a lot of Aussie battlers out there.
That's it. And it's really interesting. Like when we've gone in to do it, a lot of it relies on the fact that volunteers that know the people come and help out. And just seeing people turn out for other people, I think it's very wholesome. It's very warming, especially since, we can have a bit of tall poppy around the place. And then just seeing what a bunch of people can do in 4 or 5 days. And I'm not afraid to say the condition of the houses when we start versus the condition by the time we end 5 days later, it's honestly, it still blows my mind every time we go do the next one.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there, and you're probably bound by an NDA, so you can't give too much away. So I won't ask anything too curly. But so this is the second series of it. So in the first series, was there an investment expert?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't.
Yeah. So they went, hang on a second, we need to get an investment expert in. So they got you.
They got me.
Okay. All right, well, don't know what the budgets are like. I don't know why they didn't call me. They should be calling me, going, Phil,
I said they want an investment expert, so they called me
rather than a guy that talks to experts.
Yeah, they didn't want a bloke that just talks on a podcast.
Yeah, who absolutely knows nothing about investing whatsoever, which is I'm still trading off that, by the way. But we get there. So okay. So it's a house that needs some work. You guys go in there, you fix it up and make it nice and livable, and the whole community comes together and helps out. Like they're good Aussie stories, those.
And and then you add in the fact of $10,000 budget, so it's
for $10,000.
$10,000 budget.
Is it a real $10,000?
It's a real $10,000. Yep.
Not counting labour, obviously, and all the stuff your big borrower still, which in the property investment game we call sweat equity, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And there's begging and borrowing, and I don't think I've seen any stealing, but you never know. But like everybody chips in and all the rest. But 5 days, $10,000. We can't get to everything, of course, but we can get a lot done. But
$10,000. Does $10,000 go far these days? It can do. If you
absolutely, but especially when you just when you're out and you can ask for help. I think honestly that's probably one of the biggest things that I don't know if learned is the right word, but maybe come to appreciate is and of course not maybe everybody can do it if you're just renovating your house, but like being able to just go and when there's a good cause and something's happening and just ask somebody for help. I feel like these days people just don't ask for it, and most people are so happy to do it, but you don't ask. Nobody asks. So even when it's just like walking into into a trade shop or something, and you say, hey guys, like we don't have the budget for it, but like, do you think you could maybe help out and give us a few bits of wood, or of this or that? And people go, you know what, like, yeah, I'm happy to help.
And for a lot of property investors, so you can get significant uplift on a house reasonably quickly and reasonably cheaply if you know what you're doing. And that's you as the sort of investment expert. So you sort of help them deploy their dough. Where do you get your biggest bang for your buck? Like, where would you say as a property investor, if you're looking to do a sort of a cosmetic reno for the purpose of lifting up your rentability, or even for sale, where would you spend your money?
Where would I spend my money? Paint, low cost, but like when you go and see a house that's just had a bit of a paint, and like I'm not even necessarily outdoors, but inside, it is game changing. And think about how many houses you see where it's got like, weird green walls or this or that or something going on, and you go in and you give it a nice fresh coat of paint. So that's probably number one. Number two, I would say, is being able to rejig the floor plan. Being able to add a bit of extra space in, move this wall, do this, do that. You can really make a big change. And of course, you can't just rock up and do that. You need to have a bit of experience and expertise. But like, I guess this is where it comes to talking to your community. And I don't necessarily mean like go out to your local soccer club, but I mean like your friends, your family, do they know someone that could just come down on a Saturday arvo? You say you'll put the beers on, you put some sausages on, and, you can pay them, something small, but you put everything else on, and would they just be willing to come down because you've got a few other people, and suddenly something gets done? You'd
be surprised how cheap it is.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about non-structural stuff here to take down or put up a stud wall.
100%.
It's or opening it up, and like as long as it's not load bearing, it can be so transformative to a property just by doing those things. And if you've got a good mate who's a chippy or whatever, they can help you out with that stuff. And if you do anything more, obviously you've got the engineering stuff. But yeah, painting is key. I think flooring's key.
Yep.
If you've got polished floors, like it's pretty cheap to get your floors polished.
There's that, or honestly, floating floorboards. Yeah. You can go out to a number of very good retailers. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg. You can get the boards yourself. Yeah. You might struggle if you've got to cut them up and measure them in some spots. But again, if you've got a chippy mate, hey, I'll come in, I'll lay as much of the flooring as I can, and I need you do you mind coming in and come do the cuts, And suddenly you can take a very tired looking floor and make it into something crazy. And it's not hard.
It's not hard, and also another area where I know you can get real good bang for your buck, and you need someone licensed. It's a Sparky, but just changing your light switches and your light fittings can be relatively cheap way to go about sort of changing and transforming, alongside with some paint and floors. It's you can huge difference.
And I'll take you one step further on the same train of thought. Even down to like your handles, your taps, like. It's the stuff, like you can walk into Bunnings and you can get handles for $10, $15, and all you got to do is take out your old one and drill in the new one. And if you're going to go paint, say, your kitchen cupboards, you're not even getting new ones, paint your kitchen cupboards, take off the old handles, put in fresh ones.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Standard sizes as well, right? You just put it the same size handles in. You don't have to drill anything. You do it in a couple of hours. Job done.
100%. And I can tell you, for anyone who hasn't gone and painted something before, like, are you gonna be Picasso? Probably not. But at the end of the day, you can do a pretty decent job. And if the job doesn't look that good, add another coat.
Yeah.
And it'll probably come out all right, Yeah. And depending on where you're doing it, if you're just doing a part of a bedroom, I don't know, something outside, whatever it might be, like, you'd be surprised at how, you stand up a meter away and you put your eyes on it and you go, oh, I can see all the things I would improve. But you step back one more meter and you go, oh, it actually looks all right.
Once you put some furniture in and you stop looking at it, you don't even see it.
100%.
So you can actually move the needle quickly on an investment property. I remember renovating a full property in 3 days. New kitchen, obviously lined it all up. But painting, lights, kitchen, bathroom, the whole kit and caboodle, 2-bedroom apartment in Mount Druitt of western suburb of Sydney. It can be done.
Well, you know what it is? You just got to roll up your sleeves and rip into it and know you're going to be tired. You'll probably be a little bit stressed. You're going to make a few mistakes. But for 3 days, like you go pay certain people to go and do certain activities.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. I mean, here you go. Here's a hot tip for everyone. You got to know what you're doing, of course, because you don't want to pull something off that you're not meant to. But even down to just prepping the space, right? Ripping up the old carpet, taking off the skirting boards, doing all that stuff, which when someone else is going to come in and you're going to pay them to do it, you could do a lot of that. Like, all you need is a good Stanley knife or a chisel and a hammer, and you can prep that space.
The low-skilled stuff, all the wall preps,
exactly right.
Cleaning, it's a lot. It's a lot. If you're doing a reno and investment property, most of the stuff you can do yourself. You're going to be, to get the right finishes, you're going to have to get the right professionals. And when there is an actual legally a trade required, as in sparkies and plumbers and stuff like that, but you can largely get it done.
I mean, even like you said, prepping walls, get some sugar soap, get a gurney your driveway at the same time, gurney the outside of your house, clear it all off, get your cobwebs gone. Like, people don't realize, like, the hours that goes into prepping a workspace to actually then do what looks like the fun, big ticket item. You almost put more work into prepping it than actually doing it. And you're paying that same, guy or girl that comes to help you, you're paying them the same hourly rate, whether they're doing the heavy intensive stuff or whether they're wiping down the walls.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so you've been getting your hands dirty on the show?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're there for a whole week. You have to.
So you're doing the stuff. And the key thing with that is I still do renos now. I did one 9 months ago, and I don't think I necessarily picked up a tool for it, but I project managed it.
Yeah.
And because I've done it so many times in the past, I know what it's like to do it, and I can do it. It just makes you so much better at project managing when you don't actually want to put your hands on the tools, right?
Yeah.
And I guess all probably go, I can't be bothered doing that, or I want to be faster, or I want to spend my time doing other things. But do the work. I look forward to the show.
It's going to be good.
When's it air? When's the first one?
Still waiting for the official confirmation, but my understanding is in the next few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any point you're worried that they've captured you on camera that you might not have been your normal self? Have you yelled at anyone, or you sworn at anyone, or told anyone they're an idiot?
Oh, nah. I mean, I'm sure, like, what the beauty of the show is it's very raw. It's not like no one's getting TV makeup done or anything. Like, you're on a work site, right?
Okay.
And
so there's no hair and makeup.
No. So that's why I think it's the beauty of the show, and I'm sure that there's a couple of moments where either they've got me on something or whatever, and who knows if it'll ever make it to air. But I think that's one of the beauties of the show is it really is just a good everyday Aussie TV show with real people. You're not talking about your $10 million Vaucluse mansions. Yeah. It's everyday homes with everyday people who are good people, and you get to see the start. In one episode, you get to see the start of it, where it looks like, a bit shit. Yeah. And you get to go all the way to the end, and you see the completion. And you don't have to wait 12 weeks for it.
Do they feed you on set every day?
Yeah.
Like just some bloke cooking a barbie, or proper set caterers?
Had a lot of sausages. Yeah.
There's always just someone cooking it. They put brekkie on every day? Bacon and...
Three square meals a day. But but it depends. Like, in some of the places we've been, like, maybe, again, it goes down to asking for help, right? Like, it might have been that somebody knows a local pub, right? Yeah. One of the places we went, there was somebody who was involved in from the family, and they owned a local brewery, and they said, you guys can come down and eat and drink all week, and it's all good, like you don't have to pay for it, right? Yeah.
So did you put weight on while you're doing it? You're probably moving a fair bit.
Yeah, fortunately, and especially because I'm obviously not a chippy or a trade. I get to do all the, the heavy lifting and the moving stuff around and everything. So, but it's good, it gets me out of the office of what I do normally and helping out. And obviously it's a bit of fun with the TV cameras there. So,
all right, there you go. Okay, well, I look forward to it. We'll see. It's not why I brought you on to have a chat today, but it's Budget Battlers. Look out for it, everyone. Budget. I'm going to watch that, and I'm going to text you while I'm doing it, just going, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Budget Battlers, good. What I actually wanted to talk to you about is properties sort of accelerating in a positive trajectory. However, a lot of investors sitting on the sidelines still waiting for some reason. So that's what we'll get in today, and how do we sort of shape that. But we'll just go to a break. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll get into it back in a moment. Welcome back. Phil Tyrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Lachlan Vidler over at Atlas. Now, things are moving. And I caught up with my accountant yesterday, and he gave me a kick in the backside saying, "Mate, what are you doing? You've probably already missed it by a month or so. stuff's shifting into positive territory. And look, talking about sort of a wide breadth of markets, I think we've had 7 consecutive increases in national values in housing.
Yeah.
We have seen over the last week or so the federal government coming out and telegraphing fast forwarding its changes to the deposit scheme for 5%. It's going to start 1 October. There's no caps now on how much you can earn. So there's going to be a lot more people in the market. Intersecting with that is the spring selling season. We're now into spring.
Yep.
Intersected with that is indications coming out of the Reserve Bank of Australia when you look at certain data indicators that there may be more pending interest rate cuts on the horizon. So there's a lot of reasons why.
There's a lot there, isn't there?
Prices may go north at a rapid rate. And every now and then you get these more accelerated times of property price growth. Some markets, Melbourne, for example, there's all the indications are there. So property's moving, but why are so many investors standing still, mate?
I think it's really it's a bit of a psychological thing, right? Like you know, on one hand, you don't want to feel like you've missed the boat. On another hand, you don't want to feel like you've overpaid. On another hand, you're worried because what happens if I buy the one that doesn't perform?
Yeah.
You know, on another hand, what happens if I buy a lemon, which always sits there, but now you're thinking, oh, there's so many things selling, like maybe there's a bigger risk of that. I think that a lot of it really is a psychological sort of psyche from people. And really, the only people they hurt are themselves.
Yeah.
You know? What do you think?
I think Australians, unfortunately, and I may put myself into this camp at times, is that everyone wants a bargain, right?
Yeah.
And I think in property, you've been conditioned to buy well, as in you make money on your way in, not when you sell, right? And it's a sort of an old tenet of property. And everyone's been conditioned, I think, more recently that you have to be getting, inverted commas, a bargain when you buy property. There's not that many property bargains out there. You know, properties sell for market value. Yeah. And very, very occasionally you might actually get a genuine, inverted commas, bargain. And there'll be something connected with that. It'll either be someone trying to shift a property really quickly. There's distress for some reason, whether it's a debt issue or whatever else. Every now and then you might actually get something, you know, significantly under what would be deemed market value, but property sells for market value. So largely there are no bargains out there. And this is the big issue. Yeah.
And I think that, like you said, we're very conditioned to it. And I get it. At the end of the day, like, this is a zero-sum game. Like $1 in your pocket means there's not $1 going into the other person's pocket, right? So, you know, selling or buying and selling is literally a zero-sum game in that sense. Like for somebody to win, somebody has to lose. Like there's no, you know, or depending on how you look at winning and losing, but if it's just about price and dollars, for somebody to win, somebody has to lose. And you never want to feel like you're losing. But you know, it's a real issue at the moment. Like, you know, I have more than a few stories of current clients that we have on right now. Like, there's one that really springs to mind of, you know, a client who's on. They have some family that are also involved in the decision making process, which always adds a little bit of extra complication. But these people, they've been on with us since, I reckon, the start of this year.
Okay.
Start of this year, we would have shown them over that time period well over half a dozen, probably starting to push towards 10 deals, right? And of course, as we show something and they give some sort of feedback, whether it's valid or not, and we talk about it, we obviously we then try to adjust the next one for that. But the really big issue that we've sort of identified and tried to convey it a few times to them, but at the end of the day, you know, you can lead a horse to water, is that you can always find an issue with something. If you really look hard enough, you can find an issue with anything. And at some point, you have to take a leap and you have to try to look at things on its merits of what it has, not necessarily what it doesn't have. Yeah. And in the case of these people, which is the case of a lot of people, they're just a story that pops to mind for me. The opportunity cost that has now been realized by them from properties that we presented, and we even went, like, because obviously they're clients, we care about them, we want to do the right thing by them. We even have sent emails to them showing properties that we presented to them 6 months ago, whatever, they didn't proceed on. Other clients have bought them. Those clients have now gone and had bank vals done to pull equity to go and try and buy again. And they are, in some cases, $120,000 ahead on $500,000 or $600,000 purchases in 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're saying to these guys, we understand why, from your point of view, you said no. But we also tried to talk to you about why there's always a risk and there's always this and there's always that. Like, nothing is ever perfect. And we can now quantify you might have lost $100,000, $120,000. And I think there's a lot, that's just a story of us, right? Of this one client. There'll be so many people out there that are just trying to go at it themselves as well, who no one will ever know their story, that are in that boat because they're always hunting a bargain when we're not really in the market for a bargain to be existing around every corner.
Yeah. So do they know they're making the wrong decisions at the moment, but they're happy with the situation because they're just a bit orientated that way when it comes to risk?
I don't think it's that I think that in their mind, again, in the same way that you can find an issue with everything, you can also find a way to justify anything. And I think in their mind, same as, again, a lot of other people, I'm sure, they feel as though they have very strong justification for it, right? And it's like, oh, no, we don't want to take the risk on whatever it might be, right? We don't want to take the risk. And obviously, I want to make it clear. It's not like we're showing them anything crazy, like very vanilla type deals, right? Yeah. It's just that there's whatever issue might be. I think in their mind, there's a level of justification that goes on. But then in the same breath, not the same breath, but, a week later, we'll then get an email of, oh, we need to find something. Why isn't there something there? This and that. And it's like, well, there's got to be a give and take here, So, yeah, I think to answer your question, I think it's just that you can find a way to justify anything, but at some point you have to look back, you have to be a little bit introspect and think, am I actually, am I really putting my best foot forward? Am I holding on too tight and I need to release a little bit of control, but it's hard because it is quite literally the unknown. For all you know, the day after or the week after you buy a property, which is what happened with my first deal, which I've spoken on podcasts and stuff before, you're putting an excavator in the backyard because you've got clogged up pipes that you could have never known anything about, and you need to get an excavator in it to pull up a section of pipe and cut it out, refill, fix up the pipe, put it down, refill it, and it was like $12,000 later. Yeah, and this was on like a $260,000 property. Right?
Yeah.
And that was literally a month later. It was a month later.
And you can't script that stuff.
No. And I honestly, I was sitting there going, oh, shit, I bought a lemon here.
Yeah.
But the property's done fine. It was a blip. Now I've got it valued. I was looking at selling it the other day, and I'm not at the moment. Doesn't make sense to. $700K, $260 to $700K. And that $10K, $12K bill now looks like nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you look at it and just laugh at it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway.
Yeah. And it's the point, right? Good properties rarely come cheap, right? So if you sit around waiting all the time for a bargain, you're never ever really going to land one. Yeah. You just want something which suits the bill. It's going to give you what you need objectively. Hold on.
And I think especially in this market, right? Like you go into like let's say you're buying like how do I phrase this without saying something that I would disagree with? You should always be investing in the best markets at the right time, right? But let's say that you live in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and let's say the eastern suburbs of Sydney is not the best market to be investing in at that point in time for whatever reason, but you just want to do it, right? Yeah. You can still buy a good property there and know that like when the market does turn back, and I'm happy to wait for it to happen, I've got a good property that's going to perform, and you might get it at a discount because the market doesn't reflect heat, right? But if you're in the good investable markets at a time when it makes sense, you're not going to get that bargain because it doesn't exist, because these days our access to information has become so equalized across the country. You're not looking through a newspaper for ads anymore. Like everything is at your fingertips. Like the ability to find an arbitrage opportunity is extraordinarily difficult, and the opportunity cost to wait for it often isn't going to make sense anyway.
And that's the point, right? Timing perfection is absolutely a myth, isn't it? Like, you go, I'm going to get exactly the right time. I'm going to get the arbitrage. I'm going to go the uplift. You're better off just being in the market with something which is maybe, not as groundbreaking, but just by being there earlier, you probably compensate for anything waiting for that perfect property.
I think depending on what you're looking to do, and I'd say for most people, the idea and the necessity to scale a portfolio, like nobody's retiring on 2 properties, right? No. Even if you paid them out, no one's retiring on 2 properties, right? So assuming, like most people, there's an element and desire of scale to go, I don't necessarily need 20, but I probably need 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Doing it and being in and then getting the equity and then being able to recycle it quickly into your next purchase and then being able to recycle that to get your next purchase. Because the whole idea is that when you sit back in 20 years, the 20 years is going to do the heavy lifting. But if you're missing 100 grand today or 150 grand today because you're kind of balking at it, and then instead of being able to get into your second property within 6 or 12 or 18 months, you're now blowing that timeline out longer, you do have a flow-on effect.
Yeah, you do.
Right?
You do. Cheap doesn't mean good.
No.
You pay for quality, right? You just go, I found this really, really cheap property. I tell you, there's hundreds, if not thousands of cheap properties. So I'll give you a hot tip. Just go to the Broken Hill. You get heaps of stuff for cheap. Not necessarily. I'm sure they're lovely places to live.
Yeah.
But might necessarily be right for the purpose of capital growth.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We did a property team training this morning, and one of the guys got up to put his valuation analysis on the screen first. Not for everyone to sit there and like throw stones and pick at it. It was actually probably more for me to give feedback and for him to then try and teach some of the people that aren't at that level yet. And it was actually really interesting because I picked up some mistakes that I thought he made in it, right? And like, we're not perfect. I don't sit here and pretend we do trainings because we're perfect and we're just keeping the sword sharp. Like sometimes the sword blunts and you gotta make adjustments and things, right? And talking about cheap, we're looking in the vicinity of a property. So we actually looked at a CMA, an analysis of a property we'd already bought, right? And overall it was fine. It was just some things that I would have changed in them. And we were looking at different properties we could have used to justify the analysis. And it was funny, we found a property that was cheap nearby and it looked okay. And everybody took one look and said, we know there's something wrong with it. It was about 150K cheaper. We're looking at it going, there is no way in any realm in the last decade it sells for that price.
Yeah.
So to your point about good does not, or cheap does not equal good. Well, we don't know, right? We don't know. But looking at it, when you look at a property sale and you go, there is something that's cooked.
It's not hard, right? Oh, well, that's really cheap. It must be good. Like if stuff isn't, property in particular, which is resi property, is largely homogenized, right?
Yeah.
A 3-bedroom brick veneer house in a particular suburb is going to be sort of the same price. There might be variations of it. One might be nicer, more renovated, or slightly better. But there's sort of always going to be about the same price. So if something doesn't look right, it's not right, and that's property for you. So, waiting for the market to move when jumping in a market which is moving rapidly, and you still not make a decision on the basis that you only will buy a bargain is going to leave you well behind. So, why is the market moving?
Yeah,
Lachlan, give us a sense for some of the dynamics of the market we're in right now.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head with the list you rattled off, and I think the reality is that today there really is a list of factors. Like you look at different points in time and you go, oh, there was one thing that maybe really kind of drove it along a little bit and all the rest. But today it's not that way. There really is a list. I think first we start with interest rates, right? We've been in an environment where rates were elevated, and now they're coming down, and they have come down, right? We've seen them that they've now started to come down quite a bit from where they started, and there's still a chunk to go, right? Not necessarily tomorrow, but over the next 6 to 18 months, there is still more to go, right? What does that equal though, right? Prices don't move because rates come down. They move because rates coming down means people are able to borrow more money, which means that people who couldn't previously enter a market now can, and then that means more demand, and supply is not increasing. So that's another one of those factors. So then it means it goes up, right? So, and this is the thing, interest rates does not equal prices go up or down. It just is has an impact on other factors that then help determine that, right?
Yeah, so interest rates are an important factor, but one factor, and we'll continue to see variations there. We only saw over the weekend with a lot of the protests and stuff around migration and some certain views towards it, but it's certainly an accelerant on property availability and potentially affordability, with the migration policies of Australia. I don't want to get into the minutiae of that, but it certainly shapes the supply and demand equation. So that's another aspect of all of this.
100%.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think I've said it to you a million times, right? When you've got 5 people fighting over one thing, the price will be X. But then when there is now 10 people fighting over that same thing, the price will be Y, and Y will be greater than X, because there are now more people willing to put their hat in the ring, and more people are willing to throw an extra $2,000 or $3,000. And if each of them do it, you're now up $20,000 to $30,000, and that's what's happening, right? That is what we're seeing every single day. Like, I'll be very frank in saying, one of the biggest troubles with buying property as a professional these days is, or not these days, but like in the current environment, is that people always want to bargain, right? Which is obviously the first thing you got to deal with. But I think a lot of people, when you explain some of the things we've been talking about today, they're very open and understanding of that fact. And they understand, okay, well, being in is better than being out, and paying fair value is a lot better than paying undervalue when I can't find anything for 12 months, right? But the issue that we often have, and I feel like sometimes people in our industry want to make it all sound rosy and all the rest, and like there's no issues, but every job has their issues, right?
Yeah.
Our biggest issue right now is that data doesn't reflect the on-the-ground reality, right? And what happens is properties are selling frequently for $20,000 to $30,000 above what a valuation based on data that is accessible can justify.
Yep.
Right. And that's because every time properties are selling, new records or close to are being set. And then it might take upwards of a month to 6 weeks for that sales data to filter through into the platforms that, many of us use to be able to help do our analysis. So then it means we're sitting there and going, this property, the buy price is effectively going to be, let's say 680.
Yeah.
But we can't find data that supports above 640 or 650. And then at that point, you have to use different skills and talents that we have to be able to work out the justification, as well as other sales that we only know about because of being active in markets. But it's a real trouble. It is a real trouble.
It's a real challenge for the buyer's agent sector, because people are thinking that price should be selling for X, and they're using a buyer's agent to try and get a bargain on that.
Yeah.
When really the buyer's agent's coming in probably saying, no, the real price is a Y.
Yeah.
And there's also the potential that valuations don't come up to contract price, particularly in areas which are moving a lot faster than what the data lag is.
100%.
And I don't know if it happens with you, and no doubt it happens in other buyers' agents where they get a call from a client saying that the bank valuations come down less than what the contract price is.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can happily say over the 5 years that we've been running, and we've bought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties. I don't actually know what the number is off the top of my head, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions, right? We're not quite at the 1,000 mark yet, but we'll be knocking on that door pretty shortly, I assume. Over that whole time, I think we've only ever had 3 properties go under valuation, right? And then out of those 3, one of them, it was just a case of the valuer explicitly said in the notes, we actually saw it, interstate buyer's agent, like not gonna validate it, basically.
This is happening now,
right?
Yeah,
that was one of them, and then 2 of them was I guess just a general disagreement, right? Like, we still firmly stood behind the valuation that we did. We gave more numbers and all the rest. We supported it. We felt it was still fair. And they didn't agree. They brought the valuation up from where it was. Like, we weren't that short. Like, I don't know, maybe say 30 grand or something. I think they brought it up 15 to 20, but there was still a minor gap. But the client agreed with us. The client said, I can see the work you guys have done on it. I can see it all. You guys are very transparent about it with us. But you think, over hundreds of deals, 3, and one of them was, I think a bit of a person having a bad day. So really only 2 that just didn't really get much traction, but they got brought up. You're talking less than 1%. Yeah. Right.
Well, there you go. And how much impact do you think the changes to the first home buyer scheme's going to have, bringing it forward and increasing the value of property that you can buy, and completely they've completely removed the caps, right, on how much you earn.
On income, yes, but there's still property price
caps.
caps.
1.5 in
Sydney.
1.5
in Sydney, right? 900 to 1.5, and then different ones if you're in, regionals in certain states versus other things,
So less deposit, no LMI.
Yeah.
You still get some of the benefits depending on what you're buying with the stamp duty concessions.
I'm as far as I'm aware, obviously we don't deal with it because we're doing the investment side, right? But as far as I'm aware, you can still stack benefits because like the stamp duty, for example, that might be a New South Wales government, state government based one, but then this is federal government, right? And that's obviously about the loan and LMI and deposits and all the rest. So my understanding of it is, you can stack benefits.
But the point being that most of the people subscribing into the first home buyer scheme will probably be buying similar properties potentially to where most property investors play.
Well, I think it's
so you're going to compress that price point, that sort of probably bottom third.
Well, I think that there's two impacts, repercussions, whatever you want to call it, two ways that I sort of see it, right? The first one is, at the end of the day, it is going to bring more demand, right? It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you're buying in regional Australia. It doesn't matter whether you're buying in the capitals. Because the scheme is open to everyone, you think everything is relative, right? Like you might earn more money and the prices might be more expensive in capitals, but there's going to be a commensurate adjustment in the regionals, right? And some of those regionals are getting damn expensive as well, right? So it is going to bring more demand. That is just inevitable, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be Redfern in Sydney. It could be in the regionals somewhere else, but it will bring more demand. And at the end of the day, more demand equals prices going up because the supply side isn't improving, right? All we're doing is adding more people in the mix, right? So that's like my first thought around it. But my second thought, and it's something that we're seeing all the time, is it's also a huge shift to sentiment. And I think that right now, with where things are at just nationally, from both an economic point of view and a property market point of view and everything else in between, sentiment, there are a lot more things to be positive about than what there have been over the last few years, right? And obviously, savvy property investors have made money because there's been a lot of markets that have performed extraordinarily well over the last few years. But now we're talking about conditions where your average, less informed person is now feeling better about being in the market, which brings more demand, right? So talking about rates coming down, spring coming back, inflation coming down, things like the first home buyer stuff coming into it. I'm sure there's other factors I'm not really thinking about in this moment either. But that creates a lot more positive conditions compared to, say, Christmas last year. Inflation was still high. Rates hadn't come down. There was no first home buyer stuff. People didn't know when things were going to happen. So really, it was only people who know that the best time to be investing in property was yesterday and willing to take that chance. Right?
Yeah, and that's the point, what the best investors are doing right now. Let's get into it. Lachlan, let's go to another break. Stay with us back in a moment. Welcome back. Phil Tyrant, Smart Property Investment, chatting with Lachlan at Empower. Now, the market looks good. If you're not out there looking for a bargain, if you're realistic and pragmatic and actually understand finding good assets quicker means that you get longer in the market to potentially get upside growth. What are the top investors understanding that the others don't in these markets, and how are they taking action that others potentially can emulate?
I think it is a lot of what we've already talked about, right? I think ultimately the biggest thing is that they have the right approach to this, which is it is a long-term game. It is about what your return looks like, when the music stops, which should be in a number of years' time, not just in 6 months' time. Yeah. And I think for most people is breaking through that psychological barrier to understand if the property is worth 700 and I pay 700, that's not the end of the world. Because if I'm paying that in a market where there's a record being set with every other sale and there's not necessarily a record being set with mine, but in 6 or 12 months' time, we can see the pressure that's in that market and I know what's going to be there. That's a mindset of growth, and that's a mindset of someone who's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part.
And that's absolutely the point. And having the right mindset will certainly change things. But having the confidence to take action when you're ready, right?
Yeah.
And that's the point. So surrounding yourself with the right people, orientate yourself around the information, knowing what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Really understand outside of the price how a deal may stack up and constitute, how it might suit your needs. But when you're ready to pull the trigger, you got to pull the trigger.
And that's it. Like decisiveness is the hardest thing for most people because the other side is, as humans, we don't like choice. And you think you go into a property market and you sit on realestate.com, you have nothing but a perceived choice in front of you. And it makes it hard, right? It makes it really hard. That's why I think what we do is really good, because when we present a property to a client, we don't present to them 8 and say, take your pick. We don't even present 2. We will present each deal as it comes, not only because the markets are so fast, so we need to get it done.
Yeah.
We can't let them sit on a shelf. So there's a practical element to it, but also because when there is less choice there, and it's not about, we obviously don't force people into deals, but it's about going, let's keep your effort directed. Let's keep you on task and on focus. Let's present an exceptional opportunity because we've already gotten rid of all the other ones. It suddenly makes it easier to make a decision, because you're now going, is this right or is it wrong? Not, is this right, but is something else more right? Is that less wrong? You know what I mean? Like it becomes difficult for people.
It does. And this is one of the dichotomies of buyer's agents, I think, in this market, is that it comes back to people have been conditioned that a buyer's agent will get you a property at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
Lots of discounted properties out there.
Yeah.
But discounted properties often and sometimes might not grow at the same rate or speed as a property that hasn't been discounted, that is just a good property.
Yeah.
This is the point.
Absolutely. I think, the analogy I give to everyone is that if I asked you, if I just said to you right now, I don't give you any other information, but if I said to you, I want to buy you a property in a flood zone and it floods every year. You don't know anything else, but I just tell you that. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Would you do it?
No.
No, right? But if I tell you this property, the market it's in is worth even $200,000, but you can buy the property for $1.
Yeah.
You going to do it? For $1?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would.
Yeah.
For $1.
Yeah. Why not?
$1.
Yeah.
God, if it doesn't work out, I'll sell it for 10 and I'll just
there you go. 10 times your dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is that, like you said, cheap doesn't equal good.
Yeah.
Expensive as well doesn't mean it's going to be better either. It's got to be on its merits, and paying a fair value. There is nothing wrong with that. You just, to me, the biggest question is, have you validated why you're in that market? Because the reality is, if you buy a property in a good market, it truly is not really going to matter what side of the street you're on, whether you're in this suburb or a different one in that area. If you've got the 80% of it right, there might be a 20% variance down the road, and this other property's worth, $60,000 more than yours.
Yeah.
But when you've already made a gain of $250,000 in a few years, and it's just that one has made $300,000, I don't think you're going to be crying too much about it.
And this is the point also, trying to save maybe 20, 30 grand on the way in to offset what could potentially be 100 grand in capital growth. And this is the point. And timing and the cost of waiting is critical.
Yeah.
People still get upset and absorbed with trying to get a deal on the way in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's that opportunity cost. And I think that for me, that positioning piece is probably one of the most important, because unless this is literally your last property that you're planning to buy ever, and you need to make sure it's an absolute cracker, because if it's not, you're not using it for anything else. Yeah. The reality is that almost everyone that's buying is going to be using it to leapfrog into something else. And that's what your focus needs to be, because is the opportunity cost going to be worth it? Because, not only are you now going to have to spend more to get the same thing, but you've also lost the actual gain that you could have made.
Yeah. Tough. So how are you guys seeing things differently to potentially other people, sort of ground truth firsthand right now? And how can people sort of exploit that for their benefit?
Well, I think some of the ground truth is a few of the points I've already made, which is that, the ground truths are, it doesn't matter if you're a buyer's agent, you're an individual investor, or even you're an institutional investor, which obviously that doesn't really happen in average residential property. When records are being set and markets are heated and hot, there is an element that makes that harder, and a home truth is, you have to understand that, I'll give you an example. We're very honest with clients, right? There's times that we've said to a client, this is a good deal. We believe it's going to be able to stack.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not that it hasn't, right? Like I obviously said, 3 properties over hundreds and hundreds of purchases, right? But be smart, right? If you've got a finance clause and you're focused on, I want to secure the deal, if it goes under valuation, terminate the deal.
Yeah. It's easy.
Right? Like, the hardest thing right now is controlling deals, right? We had a deal. Here you go. Here's another example. We had a deal with a client. Well, it actually didn't end up being a deal. It was a property that needed. It was a property that was previously under contract, it then fell over, not with us, it fell over with somebody else for, I can't actually remember off the top of my head what it was, right? It wasn't finance or anything, like, it just fell over, right? Sorry, it wasn't valuation based. It may have been finance, they couldn't get it or something for their own personal circumstances, but nonetheless, it fell over. But that had a building and pest done on the property, right? We were given a copy of the building and pest and we saw a couple of things in it, nothing crazy by any stretch, but there was a few things that needed attention, right? So we went to the client and said, hey, look, we've got this deal. Nobody else has access to this deal. It's an off market right now since it's fallen over and they don't plan to put it back up. But what you need to understand is they're not going to stay with us forever, right? It will eventually start to get shopped around if we don't do it. And he said, yep, fair enough. That's all good. I understand that. What about the building and pest? So we took him through the building and pest and said, there's a couple of these things, right? What we think is there's only really 2 or 3 things that needed addressing. And we knew that they weren't going to be expensive, but we just didn't know the cost. And fair enough, if you're going to go into it knowing there's an issue, it's not unrealistic to want to know what that cost is going to be, right? So we said to him, all right, we'll get, they've said that they're happy to get quotes done. They're happy to pay the call out fees. And they've said that whatever the cost is, or not whatever the cost, but like if it's reasonable, they'll probably agree to pay it, right? So we left it at that. It then took a while. It took like a week to get an inspection, like a tradie to go out and actually quote up the job, right? So now our concern was we don't control the deal. More time's going by, and fair enough, the selling agent and the vendor is just focused on selling this property. So we went to the client and we said to them, what we want to do is let's sign off on the contract. Let's put in special conditions about the fact that quotes need to be had. And if you're not satisfied with the quotes, you can terminate it for any reason, right? But now we will control the deal, right? The client was nervous. The client said, I don't want to do it. I just feel like it doesn't make sense. And we tried very hard to make them understand you will be able to terminate it for literally whatever reason. They can come back as $1 on the quote. And the way it will be written is that you can terminate it, right? They didn't want to do it. The quotes got done, everything happened. We then come back and it was about another week later and another party was now involved. And the other party was happy to take it on without needing to negotiate on the works. So now we got the quotes. The quote was for like $2,500, right? It was nothing anyway. And we said to the clients, $2,500. He said, we said that we'd probably be able to negotiate on it. And we said, man, there's someone involved now. Like it's not going to happen. And he said, okay, like I guess you just won't do it, right? And I understand, right? It was also a purchase in super, and the idea of spending that money out of your super funds, I understand there's a bit of a psychological gap, right? So obviously we didn't argue with the client. We said, fair enough, right? But we did say, and this is the lesson for everyone, is that if we had that deal signed off and controlled it, they wouldn't have shopped it to anyone else. They probably would have negotiated and we would have got the $2,500 off and we'd now be in the deal, and it was a good deal to start with, right? So linking it back to finance and valuations and the practicalities are, if you've got a finance clause and it falls under, terminate the deal, right? As long as you're having reasonable comms with someone like your buyer's agent if you're working with somebody, or it's yourself, but obviously you won't care if it's yourself. As long as there's an element of transparency, which is like, hey guys, like we're not really getting this under market value. We're probably paying around market price. Like maybe there's 10 grand in it, but like you could call that a rounding error sometimes. The practicality is lock up the deal, and if it doesn't work out, terminate the deal and move on. But if it does, because your team is probably good, you've now got the deal done and you're now in the market, and now you're not going to have that opportunity cost.
Good counsel.
You can hear I get fiery and passionate because for me, the thing I hate more than anything else is watching good deals and good people not take deals for misset expectations or for nervousness, which I understand, but not being willing to push through it. When it's like I sit back and I know me and the entire team at Atlas, we are trying to do what's in your best interest. Like we are not trying to, be a bad operator or anything like that. Like we are here and we talk about it all the time in the office, how much like people care. Like, I'm not afraid to say, like, we got people on the team when they have a bad call with a client that they'll get upset. Like there's tears in the office because we care so much.
Shouldn't cry over property.
No. But even about
no tears in property.
Even a client.
I know.
No,
I
like
get it. I completely get it.
That's why I get passionate, because it's like
and you can't sweat it. And I find myself doing it sometimes because I can sometimes overcomplicate deals.
You've said that before to me.
But purely like I do a lot of deal making. And I'm quite comfortable negotiating in and around stuff. I normally strategic and tactically, I'll overcomplicate a deal, because the easiest deal to uncomplicate is one where you can actually pull things away from it. It's hard to put more complexity into a deal when you're in it.
Yeah.
You're better off having the art of trying to, layering heaps of stuff and taking it away, because that's how you can actually maneuver stuff, right? And, and again, that is it's an art, a science.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can stuff you. So sometimes it can slow things down. It can, you got to be able to, the scenario you're talking about there is just to know how far to push things before you push it too far and you've lost it. Absolutely.
But I think what, in terms of an actual practical thing to take away from it is, if you can protect yourself in a contract, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Whether it's a repair that needs a quote, whether it's finance so that, if the valve goes under, you're like, you know what, we thought there might be a chance. We still believe it's a good deal, but we obviously just don't want to cough up money. Whatever it is, if you can put it in a contract and you're protected, the risk is gone. Okay, you spend $200 on solicitors because you got to terminate the deal, or $250.
Fine.
That's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Right?
It's smart money as well, because that's what you want to build yourself in and around, a protection of a contract. And again, that's deal making. But very good, Lachlan. I enjoy catching up, mate.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably in one of the best seats in Australia to learn about property. It's funny.
You definitely are.
Talk to anyone, and they tell me exactly what I need to know. But that's good, mate. What's the best way to track you down in the team? I know you've been hard to pin down because you've been out sort of on the road doing television, but you're back now?
Back, still got a few more things to film, but, that's why I have a great team, and a team that I believe in. Otherwise, I couldn't go and leave them to go and film and things like that. But look, if you want to get in touch, you hear my passion, you hear the fire, everyone on the team feels the same, atlaspropertygroup.com.au, drop an inquiry in. We'd love to chat. We'd love to help you out. And, there's a reason why I'm on as an investment expert on national TV, right? We're pretty good at what we do.
You reckon?
Oh, mate, absolutely.
So they're not paying you, are they?
No.
They're doing it the kindness of your heart. But, it's got to be a good reason why. And I do note also that you're well regarded in professional circles within property investment. Your role as chair of PIPA, which is the flagship sort of group trying to shape better outcomes for property investors in Australia from a professional point of view. You can check them out, pipa.asn.au.
.au.
Go and check it out. If you don't know much about PIPA, I'd highly encourage you to do that. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Remember, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Heaps of stuff going on. Follow our social media. Lots of cool things happening. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.